Hello and welcome to the Auto Guide Show. This week, Kyle drives an off-road Honda, a slightly rebadged Honda. Mazda is ready to unveil a new SUV, and there's a legendary performance division that has come back. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, so kicking things off, Kyle, you drove the latest TrailSport in a somewhat long line of TrailSports.
True, yeah. It's the one Honda SUV that didn't have it yet, and it's probably a good thing it does because it's the best-selling Honda. I drove the 2026 Honda CR-V TrailSport and drove the rest of the lineup too, or at least some trims because they were all there, but this was the main event because it's new. And Mike, I think the Passport TrailSport kind of set my hopes too high.
Well, I mean, the Passport is more off-road focused to begin with, so
Yeah,
I could see the TrailSport adapting better there, but I drove the Pilot TrailSport, and I was pretty impressed. But then again, I went in with no real expectations, whereas you probably had some.
well, I think TrailSport, because Honda got a little bit of guff from people when TrailSport first debuted, right? Because it was basically just a visual package. And now it actually has some meat behind it. It has unique tuning, all-terrain tires, stuff like that. This does have new tires, but that's the thing, is it's basically it. It's just some new tires on some slightly smaller wheels. In the press kit for it, it talks about how it has a silver skid garnish in the lower bumper. And all that means is they've literally just painted the bottom little lip silver. It's not even unique. It looks exactly the same as the other ones. It's just painted that way. There's some orange badging. There is this really nice ash green color, which I do like. It showed up on the Passport first. So it gives us that off-roady look that we've seen proliferate across this entire segment and really all unibody SUVs at this point. It's just that that's basically all you get, and it's expensive too. It's the second most expensive trim, maybe third, and you're getting cloth seats. You're not getting leather. You're not getting a lot of stuff, and also the CR-V is still lagging behind some of its competitors when it comes to features, right? Like there's no 360-degree camera, which is pretty common in this class at this point. No ventilated front seats. Yeah. So it's really strange because Honda has that stuff because the Passport has the cameras. It feels like you're making a big sacrifice to have something that's kind of sort of looks like it can off-road. We did a 15-minute little trail run. A regular Crosstrek could have handled it pretty easily. It does have downhill descent control, which is sort of useful. It seemed really eager to pick up speed very quickly when we went over a crest and then went down a steep descent. But it's okay. I expected more. I expected a little more actual off-road capability. I didn't expect it to, suddenly start threatening Jeeps, but something. There's not even any suspension lift either, so it's not like you're getting more clearance.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So moving on to another Honda family product, you got to drive the ADX, which you or I hadn't driven before, just one of our freelancers. So you have the A-Spec, it looks like.
Yes. The top trim, because there's two different A-Specs, but they're named differently in Canada and the US. Also, I should just point out before I forget with the CR-V, because it's relevant to this, it had the hybrid powertrain, and that's kind of a rarity for the off-roading vehicles, and so that's kind of good. And then that's actually one of my criticisms of the ADX is, boy, does this thing need a hybrid power plant. And it's weird to me that the current Acura lineup has 0. I don't get it.
I mean, in North America, the HR-V, which is heavily related to, doesn't have the hybrid, so It's not like I don't think Honda could fit it. They could. They just haven't engineered that yet. So I guess they figured to put it in here wasn't the right spot. And maybe in the Acura, it wouldn't matter if you had the hybrid power plant and power levels because it's not going to step on the RDX's toes much at all. Whereas I get
Mhm.
it in the Honda lineup. The reason saying that this turbo is not in the HRV is because that's what the CR-V has. Well, I guess the base one now, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I agree. So it's an odd omission here, but and I mean it's the same platform as the Civic, so you know that it's possible. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so the ADX, it's all new. It's an HRV with 6 inches extra length because of the styling differences,
Wow.
and so it's like an inch and a half shorter than an RDX. So it's the turbo engine from the Integra, but with the power levels of the CR-V. So you're looking at 190 horsepower, 179 pound-feet of torque, a CVT. That was the biggest concern for me, not the power levels, because it has less power than anything else in its class. I was worried about a CVT. I've said this before on the podcast, and I'm fine saying it again. I don't think premium vehicles should have CVTs. It just feels a little low rent.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, this is a pretty good one because it's Honda's and because it's paired to a turbo engine. You're not getting a ton of need to rev it up unless you're flooring it to get on the highway, right? So overall, it's a pretty friendly vehicle. I found it really easy to get along with. It's spacious. It fixes our biggest complaint with the HRV, which is that that thing is dog slow. So yeah, overall, I think it's a good package. I think you get a good amount of features from it, and people want SUVs, right? Like whether or not this is actually more spacious than an Integra, which it isn't, people want that, and they want the additional ride height and available all-wheel drive. You pay for it a lot at the gas pumps. I couldn't crack more than 26 miles per gallon, even though I took this on the highway for most of its time with me, and it needs premium, so it gets pricey. Um, but my biggest concern with the ADX, I may have mentioned this before, I just think it's going to kill the Integra. That's my concern because the Integra
Yeah.
is the entry point of the brand, and now that they have a baby SUV, you know it's going to sell well.
Yeah. I mean, and the Integra has the CVT and stuff too. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it probably will hurt it a lot, especially considering this has a more usable hatchback. But I wonder, to your point about the drivetrains, maybe because the CRV is almost exclusively hybrid, and I think it's going that way. This gets the hybrid on the mid-cycle refresh, and the HRV gets the turbo. Maybe we're starting to trend that way.
Well,
Um,
maybe.
or if the Integra can grab the hybrid from the Civic now, then it has a difference in relevancy to this vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? And then the Prelude comes along and messes all that up.
Yeah. So sticking with this Japanese SUV theme, Mazda has given a teaser for the new CX-5 that's coming
Mhm.
July 10th. So pretty much a few days after you listen to this, which I think is pretty awesome in the sense that this is like a huge success story in Mazda hit the formula right the first time, and customers like this vehicle so much they listened, kept it in production even after the CX-50 is supposed to replace it, and now it's actually going to get another generation because it sells so well and the name. I'm really curious to see what it looks like because it can't be their kind of wide, sleek body language that they've done in the last couple because the 50s are already that. So is this just going to be a more upright five with new styling? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very curious where this fits in. Like you said, it kind of bucks the trend. All the other single digit CX models are gone, but CX-5 exists still because it's so friggin' popular. And it's still good. Like that's the thing, is it's still a great vehicle in its class. It
Mm-hmm.
just feels a little dated inside. Um, so the question I have with this, and I expand on it in the story, I don't know if this is an entirely new generation or not, because it's been around for a while and it's due for a new generation. But just earlier this year, Mazda said that it was going to debut a new generation of Skyactiv engines, and that would be in the next generation CX-5, which is due late 2027. So, so I don't know what. Maybe they moved it forward a year, and that's why we're seeing this, or maybe it's going to be a long rollout. I don't know, but it's the timeline is a little odd. So that's why I'm just trying to figure out if this is a heavy refresh to get through another 2 model years or.
Another refresh. I mean, they're really talking about styling, and the silhouette they gave you is hard to tell. Yeah, I guess see them putting on more of the headlights and grille of the CX-90/70 to
Hmm.
tie it in more because those aren't quite as wide as the 30 and the 50. But yeah, I'm really curious when the new engines and the whole new platform comes, if the 50 lives, if they just like, no, we'll just do 35, 70, 90,
To
because
really
it is
mess
kind
with
of weird
people.
having it's just weird having two of the same. But yeah, the proportions and shape of this were just right. Whereas the 50 isn't really that much different, and inside it isn't either. But it just looks different, and I think that people thought, oh, it's like sportier because it's wider. It's not, family orientated. But I don't know.
It also looks much bigger because of the width. Yeah, so I also just like that this is debuting July 10th because that's when Goodwood Festival of Speed happens. Something tells me it's not debuting on the hill though.
Unless it's getting rear wheel drive and the inline six turbo, that would be awesome.
It would.
So, moving on, JD Power, as they always do, put out a list of the best cars in initial quality. So, this is just when people basically get their car from delivery. I can't remember the exact window, it's a couple months or something. And any
Mhm.
issues they find that have to be repaired. This is a lengthy survey. I've had them before. You fill it all out, there's a ton of categories. Um, and then they rank all the surveys together. And first place was Lexus. Surprise, surprise. Um, what was interesting is they had a smallish lead, 166, which the lower is the better, like golf, to 169, and second place was Nissan. Like, that's not what you'd expect. But I started thinking about it. I thought, well, Nissan makes sense because a lot of their products are really old, so they should have ironed out most of the bugs by now, right? Um,
Yeah, okay.
Sentra, Ultima, the Pathfinder is newer, but good for them.
Sort of.
Um, what
Huh.
the biggest shocks for me was fourth place is a brand that I think you could go through about 30 brands before you guess what came fourth. Um, and again, it's a brand with very, very old products. Maybe that's why they fixed everything. But it was Jaguar.
Yeah.
Jaguar came fourth, and that is not where you
Wait,
normally expect them to be.
what?
Yeah, and they were just ahead of Chevrolet, and Dodge is just a couple behind. And these are all brands that historically didn't do well on these lists. Um, the biggest omission in the top 10 is Toyota. You would assume Toyota would be near the top, but I guess some of their turbo fours and sixes are giving them a couple issues that's maybe knocked them down.
Yeah. Yeah. I remind me, IQS is actually it's not necessarily repairs, it's just so much like it's self-reported like issues, right? Like we've seen it
Yeah.
go up the last few years because infotainment is becoming increasingly hard to understand.
Yeah, and that's been a gray area that they've been working to try to refine the survey because yeah, people just didn't understand infotainment, so cars would get slagged. But in fairness, that's part of the car. Like if you don't understand how to use it, well, then it doesn't work the way you want it to. So,
Totally, totally. Yeah, it's
uh,
valid. I think
and
it's
and that sorry, I was gonna say and that goes on the dealers because dealers can't now just give you keys to a car. You
mhm.
have to have a post delivery sort of session. Some people call it what do you call it? Not display, demonstration. But you
Yep.
need someone to teach some basics because the cars are so complicated. But it also could just be, like I said, not repairs. Could be they didn't like some of the stitching isn't straight, or one of the fenders doesn't line up. But yeah, Ram took a big hit too.
Yep.
They went down a lot, which is interesting, and I wonder how much is based around the Hurricane engine. Not that it's a bad engine, but maybe something new. There's been some issues, or maybe people are just mad there's no V8. I don't know.
I also I wonder like look, I think RAM and Stellantis as a whole does really good infotainment, but the new one is just more complicated, just like that always is the case, right? And so I
Mhm.
wonder if maybe it has to do with that. They have a really good one, but maybe their typical buyer maybe isn't as well versed in complicated digital experiences. I don't know.
Yeah, so just reading here, they also give out awards or rankings, not just for brand, but for models and categories. And General Motors won the most, which, good for them. They've been working on things, and they won for the Encore GX, the XT5, the Blazer, Silverado, and the Tahoe. I mean, the last two are almost the same. Ford had the Escape, the F-150, which is weird. How's the F-150 and the Silverado both won awards? But I'm sure there's like minute things. The Mustang and the Super Duty. I mean, what did the Mustang win? Best pony car?
I think it's funny that a lot of the GMs won, and a lot of the ones that won are vehicles that are probably being discontinued very soon.
Yeah, well, that's the GM thing, you know. You get the formula right, and then they discontinue.
Yeah,
They've done that with several models over their history. So yeah, so just interesting. I mean, like we said, this isn't indicative of pure quality, but it's just a good reflection of, I would say, expectations versus reality. When you think you're getting something, and then when you get it, you're like, oh. And maybe that's why Jag's so high is. By now, you know what an F-Type or F-Pace is, so you're not going to be surprised by what you get. So.
Yeah, imagine getting into an F-Pace in 20 or an F-Type in 2025 and being like, wait, what? This is there's no space in the back. Yeah.
So moving on to our final story before we wrap things up and get on with our special guest. SRT is officially back. So that's the street racing technology. Do I have that right? I always get it wrong. But basically, it's Stellantis' performance.
Street and race technology, maybe? I don't know.
Something like that.
They changed the name of it at some point. I remember that.
And it was a brand for like a couple years too, remember?
Yeah, because that's the Stellantis or FCA way, is like everything can be a brand, even if we only have one model. Yeah, so it's back.
It's not coming back as a brand. It's coming back as a division like it was before. And the thinking behind it is very similar to what it was, is they want to amalgamate the best engineers and resources as far as performance and racing goes from all their brands, the American brands. So they called out Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, and Jeep. So they said more models will come down the road, which is cool. I mean, there's already models that you could call SRT, so some will probably just get renamed to a degree. Like the supposed Banshee that's still, I think, coming. I mean, we haven't heard about it since the Charger launch, but that might now be the SRT Banshee. And the RHO, that could be the SRT RHO. But they are going to work on racing as well. So the Ram returned to NASCAR Truck Series and the NHRA where they currently are.
Makes sense.
But they specifically called out that models and technology will be coming to their four brands. So as I say in my story, Chrysler sells a Pacifica. So this probably relates to a future model that Chrysler's getting will have maybe a performance model, but I'm thinking an SRT Pacifica needs to come. And I don't know. I don't know how you go from there.
I think it's just covering their tracks, right? Like they couldn't say 3 brands because then people would be like, oh my God, are you guys killing Chrysler? So they just say 4 brands because if the opportunity presents itself, they could make a model for Chrysler if it fits. Nope. That's how I take it.
SRT Pacifica is on its way. Well, I'm trying to think the Hurricane, and somehow get a drive shaft to the back wheels, and off you go.
Oh, that means we can't have the full flat seats.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, it's good, and it's going to be sort of run through the top of the North American operation, so it's not like sort of a, hey, this is it. So yeah, I mean, we won't see anything for years probably of what they've really developed. Like I said, I'm sure stuff's already in development that they're just going to shift there, but 3-4 years from now, let's see what comes out, because I mean, SRT has made some of the coolest performance vehicles of their time. Like the SRT4 Neon kind of changed the entire compact game, because Dodge and the Dodge Way was like, oh, you guys have these high revving, well handling cars. Well, we're going to put every handling piece we know off of our touring cars on this car and give it a big turbocharged engine. And it dominated everything for a little while there.
And who can forget the iconic Crossfire SRT6?
Okay, so that was an AMG repackage. And let's forget about the other SRT4 that was a Caliber. But the Ram SRT10 was awesome. Put the V10 from the Ram in the Viper, then back in the Ram again. And that was like a response to Lightning. Ford had this cool Lightning, and Ram was like, yeah, well, look what we can do.
So basically, SRT's hit rate is like 50% of the time. It works every time.
I'd say it's a little higher, because the big cars, they all hit. Like SRT8 Magnum is still something I'd love to own to this day.
Fair,
and the 300 and the Charger both worked pretty well before they lost the SRT name.
And and you used the picture of the final gen, no, not the final gen
No,
Viper,
it's the
the
second last.
yeah, but I forgot about the crazy ride height in the back of that thing. What is
Yeah.
going on there?
I couldn't use the last one because SRT wasn't on it anymore
Oh yeah.
towards the very end. And we aren't covering all the brands. Jeep, the SRT8 Grand Cherokee was pretty cool before it became, well, Trackhawk's different. Or sorry, yeah, Trackhawk's different. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I am always for more performance. Now Ford needs to dust off SVO, and I guess Chevy doesn't have a division. They just put SS on everything.
Everything.
They did for a little while. Remember the Malibu Max SS?
Yes.
Uh, anyway, so that wraps it up for the news and stories and reviews of the week on the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. We will take a break right now, and when we come back, we will have a special guest, and then I will have Colum on to talk F1, and Kyle will be back to help me wrap things up. Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there, it's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind, eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back. We have a special guest joining us, a fellow car enthusiast slash YouTuber. If you could just introduce yourself and what you do.
Sure. My name is Jason Arnoff. I am a YouTuber. I review cars on YouTube. And yeah, as Mike said, I'm a car enthusiast. I got into cars a little bit later in life, but once I got into them, I was hooked, and YouTube was my outlet to get into more cars.
So before we get on, what is the channel for those listening?
It is called Gearbox Car Reviews.
All right. Well, you've kind of started answering the first question I always ask people is, how did you get into cars? Was it through family or was it something you just got into yourself? So it sounds like probably something you just kind of got into.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a bit of both. The seed was planted early. My dad had a 5-speed Integra growing up that I just loved. I thought it was so cool. And I always wanted that car, and I always wanted to drive stick just because I thought that car was so cool. But it was, the floor was rusted through by the time I turned 16, and my parents didn't really want me to have that. So, fast forward a little bit, by the time I was able to buy my own car. I bought a Mazda 3 that was a stick after having a couple of friends show me around, teach me how to drive stick in Boston of all places. So that was kind of trial by fire. it was those I had some brave friends, I guess. But then and once fast forward a little bit more to once I was having I had a family. My second kid was born, and my Mazda 3 was getting a little bit small, and I got into a car that I really didn't like. I bought a Forester because I was like, I still want to drive stick, but I have to have an SUV and I have to have all-wheel drive. And then once I had a car I didn't like, then I dove in more to research and podcasts and YouTube. And at that point, I was just kind of hooked. Um, and then going on test drives, test driving like a GTI and a Veloster N and a Civic Type R. And I was like, well, I got to figure out how to keep doing this. This is, these cars are just so cool. And that's kind of really where I got hooked.
Yeah. I have a question about that Integra. What generation was
Oh,
it?
yeah. It was, I don't know the generation names. It was like an 89, I think, 89 or
So the
90.
square one. Nice. Those don't get
Yeah.
enough love, I feel.
Yeah.
Everyone's all about the last gen, well, not including the RSX that I know was Integra's other places. But yeah, I had a friend who had a four-door stick
Okay.
of those square ones, and yeah, she loved that thing.
Do you mean the
Yeah.
square? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, my dad had the two door, and so as a kid, I was always climbing in and out of the back seat before you had car seats that were like as big as an Integra. But yeah,
Yeah, my mom had a first gen, so the flip up
Ooh,
headlight one,
okay,
really
and
square.
it was such a good car, and I'm still a little sad because she drove it down a flooded road, um,
oh
and
no,
killed the car, and I can't remember the last time I've even seen one of those ones. Like every once in a while down south or like in California, you see a second gen, the boxier
yeah,
one, but like I
yeah,
never see the flip ups anymore.
yeah,
No,
those aren't around.
I think
Yeah, every
they
time I
rusted.
see what's that? Oh, they
I
may have
said
rusted. Yeah,
I think they've
definitely.
all rusted to pieces by now,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see the second gens around sometimes, and I get nostalgic. I kind of think about buying one. Like, should I? Should I? But I don't know.
Yeah, the second gens where we are because of our love of salt. They're getting few and far between. Even the third gens are at this point. But every once in a while, you'll come across one that's usually modified to a degree, so someone's taking care of it. And you're like, oh yeah, I love those. Um, Same with the Civics of that era. There's someone in my neighborhood who has I don't know the names, but whatever was before the kind of bubbly EG, the last of the
Mhm.
square Civic hatchbacks,
the
and
EF.
Yeah,
is that what it is? Yeah, it is in mint condition. It looks so nice, and I'm always like, and it's like tastefully modified, just lowered a little with period correct wheels, and that's about it.
I, I don't want to keep going further off topic, but I'm just going to add to this Honda Acura love of yeah, like 6 months ago maybe someone in my neighborhood got a completely clean early 90s like an EG Civic Coupe. Uh, it's not a special model. It's not like an SI or anything. It's not modified. It is just a bone stock lower trim, and it just amazes me that someone made that purchase in 2025.
wow.
Yeah. All right. So
I-
moving back to
Yeah.
your site. So when did you start getting sort of serious into reviewing on YouTube?
um, it's probably been like 4 years by now. So I actually started. I built up a website that was, sort of a project for. I'm a web developer by day, so I was kind of built that up like to try to learn new coding languages and stuff. And I was going to start writing, and that just wasn't catching on quite as quickly as I wanted it to. And then so I had some, people at dealerships I was working with initially to get cars, and they were like, "You got to go on YouTube. You got to go on YouTube." And I really, I didn't want to be on camera, but finally, yeah, about 3 or 4 years ago, I finally bit the bullet and started recording on YouTube, and it's grown from there.
Excuse my sudden headset swap. My other one's died, but I can still hear you. Yeah. So looking at your page, because obviously I was checking it out. Some of your videos have done very well, especially considering like you're still growing your subscriber audience. What was the
Yeah.
first video to really go like big for you, like viral, and what was that like? Like, how did you get yourself to that point? Was it um, just natural? People found it, or were you promoting it in other places?
Yeah, I mean, everything has been kind of natural. At first, I was promoting things on Facebook and Twitter and all of that. But It really, I feel like it's been more kind of just natural from YouTube search and browsing. My biggest video so far has been the LS500. It was a 2023 LS500, and it was shot on like my old, like Chinese cheapo camera. Like it doesn't even have great video quality. It got like 80,000 views, and just that's probably my biggest video. I still don't know why that one in particular blew up, but it does seem like the Lexus and Toyota videos really kind of draw in the most people.
It's funny, as people who also make videos, you could never guess what's going to do well. Like if you were to say, out of all the cars reviewed, the LS, like this niche car that hardly sells, is the one that blows up. And we have the same thing. We do a video of like two great cars for comparison, no one watches. Then some obscure car we review and it blows up. So that's just YouTube, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you expect, you get a newer version of the same car, and you think it'll do well, and it doesn't, or you get a competitor, and like, yeah, and it doesn't. Like I had a Genesis G90, I was like, well, this is like the same thing. Now I've got better video quality. I can just, I'll put LS500 in the title. People will watch this, and it doesn't do anywhere near as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So you said you've been doing this for like 4-ish years now. We've talked to other YouTubers, and like even within the last couple of years, like since you've been doing this, they've said how much it's changed. So what have you really seen from your perspective, how YouTube has changed and how it's forced you to evolve in those couple of years?
Oh man. I feel like I'm really bad at noticing the change. I have definitely evolved in terms of like video quality, audio quality, all of that stuff. But it's just more competition, I feel like, and more of a need to kind of just pump out content. I feel like quantity is king, and YouTube Shorts have definitely gotten big. I feel like I really should adapt more to that and put out more shorts, but I haven't really hopped on that.
Yeah, the shorts, I mean, they can do well to get the channel and the name out there, but they're nothing if you're trying to make revenue off YouTube. You have to get
Right.
millions of views to get like $1. Whereas a regular video, you can get a lot more. But people like to watch shorts these days, it seems. That's sort of where the attention span is. So if you can somehow find that successful magical formula where someone will watch your short and then go to your real review, then that's, I guess, what you need to do. But it's tough.
I think really even beyond that, even on the long form videos, trying to make money on that is tough. It's really you got to find other sponsorships and partnerships or put out other products and kind of just get your name out there and then get people to go to whatever other product or partnership you have. Um, which I've done a little bit of like the sponsorship thing, a little bit of partnering with people, but I feel like I need to come up with some other kind of products or something at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the biggest. Well, we're in the automotive world, so that's what we know. So we have to stick with that. But all the biggest automotive
Right,
channels out there, and I can't even think of one that's not sponsored. Never mind, has a sponsorship within their video every time. Like that's where the big money is, and they're still making probably good money off their video. But who knows what they're getting off the
right,
sponsor? But there's a reason they always take a break and talk about whoever is giving them the sponsorship. And it's usually not even car related. It's just they know you're going to get a couple
right,
100,000 views on this video, so we'll get eyeballs on our product.
It's funny
right.
seeing certain companies just become bigger with a lot of big YouTubers. Like I don't know how many times I've seen ads for NordVPN or sponsored
Yeah,
content. Like, oh, do you need a VPN? Nord, and it's always that.
there's
Yeah,
like
I feel
this.
like Cash App lately has been just everywhere. It's like you start hearing it in one place and you hear it everywhere else.
Yeah,
There's this AG1. I don't even know what it is. It's some sort of supplement food thing, and everyone's talking about it. And I'm like, okay, like they're always talking about how great it is. It's like I don't even know if I can get that in Canada, but I see it almost daily. But yeah, it's always, you're right. It's like a someone puts all their money in for like a couple months, and it's everywhere, and then it's the next thing, and move on to the next one. Now, the secret is if you can get like a sponsor to sponsor your channel long term, but I think that's the dream of everybody.
Yeah, that would be cool. I have somebody actually that's committed to a lot of my EV videos, but other than that, yeah, I haven't really found any long term stuff.
Mhm.
So stepping back to the cars, do you still have the Forester now, or have you moved on to something else since?
No, I went through a bunch of stuff. Well, not a bunch of stuff, but I went through. So after the Forester, I bought a Cayenne with a stick. It was a 958. So first, it is 2011 to
Mm-hmm.
2014. They made the base models with the VR6 and stick, and so I bought one of those, and that was a whole learning process. A lot of research, a lot of it was my first time buying a private sale, first time buying something that was halfway across the country, and um, so that was a big learning process. And then I had that, and my wife left her job and went back to school, and I was kind of like, well, now I have this high mileage luxury German car. Maybe I should pocket a little bit of money here and not have something that when something goes wrong, we're going to be spending a whole bunch of money. So I sold that and got a new GTI. It was a Mark 7.5. So I had the Dieselgate warranty, that extra, what it was, a 7 year or 6 year, 7 year, or whatever, 72,000 mile warranty. I was like, this will be perfect. Um, and then after the GTI, I had, and now I have a mini Clubman S all four.
Nice.
So needed something still that could carry. The kids are still kind of small, and I've got a 60-pound black lab, so I got to fit the whole family, and so that kind of fit the bill there.
I like the Clubman. It's so underrated. I'm so sad to see it just discontinued with its barn doors, and it's basically an all-wheel drive mini wagon. Especially with the S, you get deep, good power too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to drive that
So
very briefly, like last year. So props for getting it before it disappeared.
Yeah, I have not the most recent one. It's a 2017 to the F54, I think. But yeah, it's still got the switches and stuff. Like the new ones, that like the switches are all plasticky now. This one still has like the metal switches, and it's a little bit more old school. I like it.
I'm in the mini convertible this week, which we'll talk in a future podcast about. But yeah, it's very different than they used to be. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
big. So now that we know what you've owned, what is something that's on your radar that you would love to own, semi reasonable? I mean, it doesn't have to be something you can afford now, but not like, oh, I want, one off Ferrari down the road.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to get back into a Cayenne, but the manuals are off the charts at this point in terms of price. It's crazy what people are paying for them. I'd love to get, like a Cayman or a Boxster, even an early gen, like a 986 or 987, would be cool to have. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, those are my primary ones. But I feel like it changes every 5 minutes. You're scrolling through, looking at cars, and you're like, oh, I think I'd like to have one of those. Oh, I think I'd like to have one. It's tough.
Yeah, there's no way to turn that off, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few of our colleagues up here who have 986s now. It seems like that's just been a trend, and yeah, I mean, I don't blame anyone for wanting them. They're such a great driving car, and it's just old enough that it still feels modern, but it doesn't feel like a pain to live with. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and they've proven themselves in terms of reliability, and they're only like 8 grand. Like, I mean, they're so cheap.
yeah, they're really affordable. They're fun to drive as long as they've had the proper maintenance. They're gonna be fine for you for a few years. Like I don't ever want to encourage people to make silly decisions, but it's like you could buy one for 2 or 3 years and then sell it for probably what you paid, maybe more. It's like
Right,
it seems silly not to do it.
right.
You need to get some sort of manual wagon, I think, to haul the family around. I guess you kind of have one already, but I'm trying to think of the last great manual wagons, but they're so few and far between.
It's like a CTSV or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
those are so expensive too, though. I don't. There was some I mean, there's like the V70R was supposed to be pretty cool. I never drove one, but I know those were supposed to be pretty cool. Um, I don't know. Yeah, there aren't a ton of them.
Yeah, in terms of manual wagons, I think the last BMW, like the last 3 Series wagon that was sold was auto only, so I don't think that
Hmm.
works.
The
Yeah,
R5
I
doesn't
mean,
have
there
it.
was they did have earlier. There were definitely some earlier manual BMW wagons that have tempted me for sure. But yeah, those do worry me a little bit in terms of maintenance and stuff.
yeah. I think the E60 wagon, I'm pretty sure you could get the V8 with a manual, but that sounds
Ooh.
like a lot of potential for issues. But
Speaking
You
of
could get
silly,
oh yeah, go
so
ahead.
I was
Sorry,
gonna
go
say,
ahead.
speaking of silly family cars, it's not a manual, but the prices have become ridiculous too. Is remember the R63 Mercedes? Basically the AMG version of their. It wasn't really a minivan, but it was.
it
Um,
was.
Yeah.
I saw one not too long ago. I was like, oh, that's so awesome. But holy cow, their price has gone up because there's so few were made and people know what they have. And people like us will pay way too much money for them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need more high performance minivans. Maybe the Hellcat Pacifica will come out one day.
We're
Yeah.
trending that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Getting back into
all,
that world.
all we need is the G no, what is it? The hybrid max powertrain from the Crown in the Sienna. Give me a 360
Oh yeah.
horsepower Sienna. That's all I want.
Like
Um,
the Bisimoto Odyssey. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah.
No, no, I'm going for the hybrid max out of the Tundra. Put that into the Sienna.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah,
got a
that would
real
be a hell of a car.
Good
a
luck.
real hauler. There's got to be space
Uh,
up there for it.
um, so Mike asked if there was anything that you were looking for and sent us down that rabbit hole. Another question that we always ask every guest is there anything that you regret getting rid of? What the one car that you wish you could just get back?
Well, right now it's the Cayenne. I mean, I wish I still had held on to that for a lot of reasons. For one, I think it'd be perfect for the size of my family right now, with the kids kind of growing and getting into sports, and you know, with the dog, and you know, it's just I'm leaning more comfort lately. You know, as I get a little bit older, not old, but you know, I'm leaning a little bit more comfort for my daily driver. So that'd be nice. Plus the fact that you know they're just worth so much now. I know that I have the value in it too. Whereas like the Mini, it's not you know, it's a cool car, it's fun, but it's not really worth much when I go to sell it. Um, yeah, I mean that's the GTI. I still miss. Um, you know, I kind of knew that going into a Mini was going to be like it's a little bit older, a little bit fewer features and stuff. But I wanted to move some money around to get my wife help get my wife a new car. Um, and so I do kind of miss the GTI a little bit as well. But yeah, those two definitely.
Would your wallet have liked you keeping the Cayenne this whole time though?
You know, from everything I've read, from everything I've heard about them for a base model with a VR6, I think it probably wouldn't have been too bad. But you know, who knows what would have happened in that universe?
Mm-hmm.
I did review that. I guess it was in 14, sort of towards its end, base blue manual, and I thought it was really cool. Like it wasn't like the performance Cayenne, like the turbos and stuff was, but it was just cool that it still handled well, and you got to change your own gears, and it was a Porsche inside.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is just I want to be able to, you know, I need something else to do while I'm driving. I want to be able to, you know, to shift for myself, and you know, it also kind of brings me that connection with my dad, with his Integra and all that. And you know, it's still the base motor is still plenty quick when I'm mostly like on the highway, and I don't need it for performance. It does handle well when you need it to. I'm not taking it to the track or anything. It's just a daily driver. But yeah, it's just a cool car.
Yeah. And Porsche knows what it's doing. It took
Yeah.
its time on SUVs, and I mean now they've been building them for over 20 years. So,
Yeah.
If you
uh,
ever get to the next, sorry, Kyle, just one quick thing. If you
yeah.
ever get to the next level of your comfort and let's just say age progression, don't forget there's those 2000s manual turbo Outbacks out there.
That's true. I don't know. The Forester kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't know if I want to go back to Subaru, which I know plenty of people love their Subarus. I've got nothing against Subaru, and I totally get why people like them. It's just that we're just after coming from the Mazda 3, it just kind of didn't jive with me. I don't know if I'm ready to go back to another one.
Did you
Yeah.
have the XT or just the regular?
No, it's just a regular. It was the last year of the manual Forester, the 2018, so they didn't have the XT anymore.
As someone who worked at Subaru head office in Canada during those years when the manuals slowly got phased out, yeah, the last legacy Outback and Forester manuals were very unexciting cars. They were just, hey, it's a manual. But the Forester, I remember, oh my God, was their body like not roll? It was like forward back. You change gears, you look at the sky, then you look down, and you look at the sky. Like it was crazy. But those old turbo ones were fun. But that's another car that you want to talk about overvalued by people who own them.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I'll get a chance to drive one and it can change my mind back to it. I want to love it, but yeah,
So sort of going down that road, you touched on it earlier of like, you want something that's more comfort oriented at this stage in your life. After reviewing cars for years and getting into how many seats, have you found that your personal taste in cars has kind of changed because of the job in ways that you maybe didn't expect?
I mean, I don't know. That's a tough question. I mean, yeah, maybe part of moving towards the comfort oriented thing is I've just kind of gotten everything out where I have access to these other cars that are more performance oriented and maybe at this point I'm like, okay, I can for my own car, I can now go into something more comfort oriented. Whereas if I hadn't had all these experiences, I might still be kind of chasing the more performance oriented stuff.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
okay. That's fair. I always think back. I've learned in the like years that I've been doing this that I like Grand Tours a lot more than I thought I did, and convertibles.
Yeah.
But I always think back, Mike. I'm not sure if you remember this, but a few years ago, Mike and I had two different cars for testing that we were both really excited for. He had the CT5V Blackwing, and I had the Cayman GT4 RS. And we met up for coffee, and it was like, oh, do you want to like swap and drive each other's cars just for a little bit to get the taste of them? And Mike looked at the Cayman, and then he looked back at the Blackwing, and he was like, nah, I'm good. He
That's
knows what he
funny.
likes, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I love the Blackwing. That's my car. Manual V8, still
Those are
comfortable for
so
the whole
cool.
family. Yeah, the
Yeah.
price is
The CT
the only barrier.
the CT4 Blackwing was actually my first press car with a stick, and that was
Oh
Dang.
a
wow.
was a crazy experience having that show up at my house. I've since driven the CT5 only in auto, but yeah, the CT4 or the manual left a huge impression on me for sure. And I do get what you mean with the Grand Tours. I mean, I always kind of thought that these are cars that they're cool. I get why people like them. They're not really for me. And then I get more like even something like an LC 500. I remember that one showed up, and I was like, they're pretty. They've got this NAV8, but they're probably not all that great to drive. They're probably just comfortable and soft and all that. And by the end of the week, I was like, man, I need to get one of these.
The LC500 is auto journalist catnip. Like
Yeah.
everyone who's driven one is like, oh, it's the best car. It's going to be a classic in as soon as it goes out of production. It's going to be people like us just hoping to buy it, and then the people who own it knowing how much they can charge for it.
All right.
Same thing. I first drove it. I thought this is like a show car. I'm gonna show off, but whatever. And it was so nice. And then I get in like the RCF and the IS 500, and I'm like, how did none of that trickle down to these cars? They still have
Right.
the V8 and the transmission, and it's a completely different world. But it's
I
funny you bring up
know.
your first press car because I you beat my story. Like I had a decent first press car too when I first started doing this. The guy I worked with, it's like, "Oh, I'll book you a car." He's like, "Cool." Like I drive a brand new Corolla. Like I'd love to try this out and test it. And I had a Lancer Rally Art right before they went out of
Oh,
production. So
nice.
with the dual clutch, so it's kind of cool because I owned a WRX at the time. I think that's why he got it for me. So it was
Okay.
interesting to see the other lower turbo powered. But yeah, that car was too much of a gap between it and the Evo. I see why it didn't last long.
Yeah.
What was your
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
car?
That was.
My first press car, uh, not interesting. Uh, the current Rev4, the Rev4 Limited, was my first week-long press loan. At AutoGuide, it was the ILX after it got the facelift, so it was a little more good-looking. But mine is always going to be my first press trip for AutoGuide. It was going to be my high water mark of Finland Arctic Circle Taycan 4S. I like.
Wow.
I'll never have a better first trip ever.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool.
Well, your first car may be boring compared to what Jason and I drove, but it probably sells more in a month than we will in its entire model run. So you got
Yeah,
that going for you.
it was important. That was the nice thing, right? It was because it was when this generation launched, and it was like, oh, we have a RAV4 available. It's the top trim, and like one thing that I find with this job, and I'm sure we're all on the same page here, is like we get used to the tech because we're always in new cars. But you take it to family and friends, and they're always blown away by all these new features that modern cars have because most people keep a car for a decade or so. So it was really fascinating because, yeah, like it's the RAV4. So many people I know are considering one as their vehicle.
Yeah, well, that's a good point you bring up. So, Jason, you said you started with dealerships, and they'll have other trims. Like yesterday, I had to transport something in a U-Haul pickup truck. I had to book last minute, and I went, and it was a Silverado, but it was the regular cab long bed, absolute base, and like we'll never get that on fleet. And I didn't even know it had that like ancient tiny little infotainment screen thing that you could barely hook up to, and like the steering wheel had cruise and no other buttons and bench seat. And I was like, oh, this is like they still make these. And driving, I was like, but it still drives like a Silverado. So it's interesting to get that because we never get the base models.
Yeah, I've had a couple that were either base or lower trim, which, props to the automakers for having those in the fleet. But I feel like there are so many comments on YouTube like, we don't want to see the top trim. We want the base trim. Like, what? We can't afford this. And it would be nice to see more of those. But yeah, you're right. You kind of get used to having all these features and stuff. But yeah, I remember what a Ford gave me a base two-door manual Bronco. I was like, this is how this car is supposed to be. This is perfect, and props to them for having that in the fleet. Um, and Chevy gave me it was like the base of the Equinox EV when it came out. Like
Mhm.
before they came out with the one LT, they had just had the two LT. They gave me one of those, and it wasn't even all wheel drive. And so, I think we need more of that. I think those videos actually did a lot better than the other stuff around that time as well. Just because I think people want to see those base models.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I fully agree, and I get why manufacturers don't do it. They're trying to show off their vehicles in the best possible light, so you want it loaded. But the ones you mentioned, like they're not even base; they're still pretty loaded. Like I had an M3 a couple weeks ago, and it was technically base. It had a couple options, but we're still talking in Canada six-figure car. But one of the best reviews a couple years ago, I think it was in our top three for the year, was I had a Jeep Compass, and it was here. It's called the North, which is base or one above base in the U.S. And that thing blew up because no one ever drove that. So we got a review of what the regular one was like. So yeah, there's a definitely a for our sake, a lot of value in the base, but I get why the automakers try to avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have there's a base Corolla L currently on the fleet up here, but as that trim no longer exists in the US, it's a tough one. But I basically think of it as the Quebec special. Like that's where that car is selling, is a base Corolla. You get a heated steering wheel, or maybe not even that. You get heated seats. And so like that's all people need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would fit right into Quebec racing. They love manual, low equipped, fun cars, and that's there's cars that have survived in Canada with a manual for years after the US just because they could sell thousands in Quebec. So
To come up
yeah,
there and get a car and bring it back. See
Yeah,
what,
exactly.
if I can some kind of gray market, something get it over the border.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you want a Nissan Micra, that's where you can go.
You want various trims
Top
of
of
a
my
Sentra?
list.
Sentra manual. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we should let you go. Let you get back to your regular job. Although I guess you're having a little vacation this week, so that's nice. We will definitely want to talk to you again. This has been fun, and check out your site. So again, for those who are listening, it's Gearbox Car Reviews on YouTube, and there's plenty of videos there. And what do you put up? Try to put up 1 or 2 a week?
I've been trying to do one a week, which is a stretch having a family and a day job, but I'm trying to get one out a week, usually Saturday or Sunday release.
All right.
Nice.
Well, subscribe to his channel, and like I said, we'll talk to you again sometime down the road. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me.
Thanks, Jason.
Have a good one.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We have Colum joining us this week just to talk about F1, but there's a lot to talk about. Before we get started, Silverstone will have just finished. We don't know the results because we always record this early, but if we step back a race to Austria, remember all those rule changes that were supposed to slow the McLarens down?
Not even close.
I think that was the most dominating race. Like the two of them were fighting like crazy, and they were still running away from everybody.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big surprises. I saw some tweet from Christian Horner about how he was basically saying, Piastri was up Norris's butt for the first 20 laps of the race, or whatever, and it didn't affect his performance at all. And they just they were going at it. They were the gap between them and the rest of the field. It was. I remember watching, and they were not many laps in before they had a free pit stop. Like it was like 14 after like 14 laps, and they were already could take a free pit stop. It was just like they are extremely dominant. And the other amazing thing is that yes, I know they were both really giving it. So it's like, okay, yeah, they're going fast, but also, I mean, you see in so many races that when the guys actually are wheel to wheel racing, it slows them down a lot. Right? And so then you'll often see the third car catch up. The third car was it I guess Leclerc for most of it, nowhere close. So yeah, it's going to take a miracle for McLaren to not win this championship. So
they were lapping the top 10 well before the race was over, which most races you don't even get to that point. I mean, it's a short track, I get it, but but like you said, they weren't slowing down much when they're racing. But I guess that's a bit of an advantage of racing a teammate. Like Norris didn't make a mistake like the race before, so it was a lot of switcheroos and over-unders. No one was dive bombing, knowing they'd slow both down, but to try to get the lead. So it was good racing.
Piastri did a dive bomb, and it almost caught him out too. He almost did the opposite, and it's funny how it's just that margin. He didn't, and as a result, no one's picking on Piastri this week. But he did it. He threw one up the inside, and they radioed back saying no more of those sketchy chances.
Yeah.
So.
We'll get to the rumors in a sec, but I saw so many memes that were hilarious about Verstappen in the second corner there. How Kimi took him out, and they're just chatting what happened? And they said if that was George, it would have been fights. But because it was the other Mercedes driver who Max likes, it's okay, what happened here?
Yeah, and I think you have to give Kimi's a rookie. You got to give him just got to give him some space to do what he's going to do, right? They will make mistakes. So.
Yeah, and it wasn't as people he just terrible, blew the corners, and I was no, he got caught out on the braking a bit, and when he first hit the brakes, his back kicked out. It wasn't he made that move, the car did, and then by then he's just sliding.
Yeah, so. He was overcommit. Yeah, so the story I was going to bring up was a little picture of Martin Brundle. He was on Sky, F1, commenting that it was very unusual. So I guess to go back. The British Grand Prix, we're almost there, and the British media is going nuts with rumors. And the biggest rumor is that there's increased serious conversations between Verstappen and Mercedes. I again often give these with a grain of salt, but there's a lot, and it seems like when there's a smoke, there's fire kind of a scenario. Obviously, he would be protecting his contract at Red Bull by use a little leverage. But the Martin Brundle made this interesting comment on Sky, basically saying it's also very unusual that Mercedes has not already announced George Russell's contract extension, and so it could be that there's something coming there. So that would be a wild scenario. I don't know. I mean, I do feel like Verstappen's got 4 world championships and then has a terrible year, and Red Bull feels like they're falling apart. Like, do you think they're going to get it back together right away? I don't know. And obviously the idea is that Mercedes would keep Kimi, right? Because Toto's sort of more, he's like invested. I think Toto is actually like sponsored personally, like Kimi's like startup racing career. So I don't think he's going anywhere. And I think you could definitely see a George Verstappen. That would be a terrible team. Just bad news all around.
Yeah.
And I think
like some of those Hamilton where he'd just be fighting his teammate more than everyone else.
Yeah. And I think Kimi's a kind of guy who, I mean, I don't think Kimi wants to be a backbencher for anybody either, but he's probably got a year or two of he'll accept a little bit of, not being the number one driver. And then by then, you make your decisions then. So it's that's the big, my Twitter feed was blowing up with it all week long.
So I got three things I just thought of while you were talking about this. First off is conspiracy. How we just talked about Kimi took out Max, and he wasn't even mad. So maybe because he knows like we're future teammates, or maybe it was, hey Kimi, take me out. So it looks like I do even worse for Red Bull, so I get out my contract. But Toto and Max would be like the best co-personalities. Like they would have the most like abrupt, serious conversations about things, just get to business. Like they're just like the same person. So I think that'd actually be a very good pairing, and they'd probably do well if they had a good car. So to your point, I don't know if, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, they've got the might of Mercedes-Benz, right? Like Mercedes they were basically always dominant in Formula One. They were dominant years ago. They didn't participate for like 30 years. They came back dead serious, came back with Schumacher, got the training, got Hamilton, killed everybody, just obliterated the competition. And now they've struggled for a year or two, but that they may be ascendant for all we know. So.
Yeah. Well, like now Max is like, the car's not turning, tires are terrible, and Christian tries to like, whoa, Max, just calm down. Let's be like, if you'd say that, and Toto would be like, what corner? Be like, corner 3, half-inch, got it. And then it'd be good. But I don't know if you saw the rumor I saw last night is now, because of that, the rumor spinning that George is going to Aston Martin, that Stroll's out, and it'll be George and Alonso with the new car because of, they got Newey and the push they're making that they want him to be there, which would be interesting if that works. And let's say he goes there, and you'd have like him heading up competitive Aston and Max at Mercedes, and you have the Ferrari guys and you have the McLaren guys, and who knows what some of these other teams will. Red Bull would be lost though. Like I don't know who they'd have be their number one guy. They'd have yeah, and that's the thing too. Maybe Max is thinking, hey, Mercedes, both cars are competitive and Kimi's good, so I'll have a teammate to drive with. So
I it's a good combo. I like that idea of George would be good for Aston Martin too. I actually think that like another one of George's sort of flaws is that I don't think he brings like money to the table with him, right? Like big sponsors and other stuff. Like he's earned his spot in Formula One, which is good for him, right? But if you bring Max, he's going to bring money and sponsors to that team. And Aston Martin is kind of a team that, for now anyway, kind of doesn't need sponsorship money, right? Like the money's coming from elsewhere. So.
Well, they could use George as sponsorship money because he could do all these fancy George poses in front of their various cars for marketing. So
exactly,
he makes their money back.
There you go. All right, story number 2. Cadillac is apparently going to be launching a documentary about their sort of involvement and their how to launch a Formula One team, hosted by and directed by Keanu Reeves. So I just saw this actually on LinkedIn last night.
Interesting choice. I like Keanu. Yeah, he's a good Canadian, which seems weird for the American F1 team.
Yeah, but so he hosted the. Do you remember the documentary about the Braun? F1 team.
Yeah.
So he did he host it or voiced it, either or?
No. He was doing all the interviews. He was.
You're right.
It was his documentary. Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently it's sort of the same production team as that. So they basically hired his production team to do it. So should be good, should be authentic, I think, which is nice. Keanu's like legit. So I have good faith in that. So I saw that last night. I was like, wow, that's super cool. I actually would enjoy that. It kind of reminds, I don't know if it would be the same, the back. Do you remember the Audi's Truth in 24 when they did a documentary of their 24 Hours of Le Mans? Like that was really good back in the day. Cause it was, I think when they did it too, like they weren't even, I mean, they really filmed it with, I think, the intention of publishing it regardless if they won or not. And they ended up winning and it was great and all that stuff. But that was a really very interesting, before the Netflixes of the world, really, that like Truth in 24 was quite revolutionary. So,
but the Braun thing was good. And if it's the same team, like, yeah, it should be interesting. It's a story unfolding in real time as opposed to back. But and for the Canadians that will get the inside joke, maybe Keanu needs some more than just the Rogers Ignite money right now.
Boo. All right, my last. I've got some couple of little quick rumors I can drop at the end, but the last sort of story is that apparently the F1 movie has been such a success that there's discussions about a sequel already. So the only information, and this is being reported by Variety, is that reliable sources, but that's it. There's no quotes, there's no other things, but it's kind of a fact when something does that well, people will make sequels. So, and it's, I think, still relatively early days. I'm going to go watch it this weekend. So,
yeah, I haven't seen it either. I heard it's what you expect. The actual racing is like, if you like F1 like we do, it's terrible in the sense of it's not how racing happens. Sort of like the Gran Turismo movie, but if you just watch it for like cars and action and a story, it's good. But
yeah.
I would like to suggest to the people, remember the movie Major League, which was about Major League Baseball?
Yes.
And then I think it was the third sequel. They went back to the minors. It was Major League back to the minors. Well, this was the F1 movie. The next one could be F2. And it's about them going back to F2.
I like it. It's good. It's like too fast, too furious. But no, but actually it's a good point of following the juniors. There's actually a lot of, I'm trying to think of some other great stories of, there's a ton of Netflix series about like non-pro sports. There was they did what was it called? Last Chance U was the college one for football, and then they actually did a couple seasons. I think it was called QB1, and it was all about high school quarterbacks, and it was very good. And of course, it's absurd to see these like high schools in like Las Vegas, and they have like their equipment, their facilities were better than the university I went to, right? Like it was like, holy crap, that the money being spent there. So it could be very interesting to actually tell the stories of the F2 drivers, especially, I don't know if you haven't, you can YouTube it. The F2 race on the weekend had a wild crash.
Yeah, I saw that.
Where it flipped over on top. And then actually it was funny. After I saw that, I got more intrigued because I've got the app and I go watch everything else. I went and watched the F3 highlights. And first of all, the F3 cars, there's 30 of them on track and it's just like chaos. There's cars bumping and grinding. It's really like, you don't have to make up storylines. There's storylines all over the place in those lower levels. So there's F2, the movie. Let's do it.
Sonny Hayes, assuming he survives this movie, I have no idea, is retired, grizzled team manager now of an F2 team, and he's trying to, him and the people move up to a level, kind of like the Gran Turismo. But anyway,
it's his son. It's his son.
Ooh. Well, that would the son that probably isn't even in this movie is suddenly old enough to be an F2. I guess it could be years down the road. He could play his real age.
There you go.
Next movie. All right. Well, we better get going. We've taken a lot of time up here, but we will be back. Well, I won't be with you next week. You will be talking to someone else because I'm off on vacation, but I will be back in 2 weeks to chat with you.
Have a great time. Enjoy it. Watch lots of F1 while you're gone.
Will do. See ya.
See.
Okay, so that just about wraps things up on the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. We'll take a quick look at what we've been doing this week and what's next. So, Kyle, before you try to unpack what you've been up to this week, I have been driving the new Mini Cooper S convertible. It's an interesting vehicle. I don't want to get into it too deep, but it's surprised me twice. So,
Interesting.
yeah, like I had an idea. I drove it and I was like, oh, no, a different idea. And as time's gone on, I'm like, actually, no, different idea. So that will all be explained on a future podcast. And next week, I am in the 26 Kia Sportage or Sportage for our Canadians. So I'm looking forward to that because it's been a couple years and we really like that compact SUV.
Yeah, it won our mega comparison. So yeah, I'm curious about that one.
Sorry, and I don't think I've ever driven. I don't think this is a hybrid, and I don't remember last time I drove a 9 hybrid version of that too.
Ooh, I have thoughts. Okay, well, let's see. So I came back. I think I mentioned it on last week's episode that I was heading out to drive the new Lexus RZ, the revised one. Got back a little bit later this week on it. Can't talk about it on this episode, but you will hear about it next week. And then I am in the BMW M4 CS. Also, maybe not quite the same as you, where I've seen like a different idea of the car change over my time with it, but it's fascinating. I'm not a huge fan of the current M4, but I know that BMW CS models are always good. So yeah, I hope to actually give it a proper workout on the weekend. But so far, I've been impressed. And
CS stands for crazy speed, right?
The S is actually missing the lines through it because it's crazy $, which is typically the thing for CS. And then next week I have the hardship of being in a Lexus LC. Yeah, that's it.
Darn.
Yeah, and I mean that we say it elsewhere recently. It's AutoJournal catnip, right? Like no one who gets into the V8 version of the LC ever says anything other than great things about it. So I'm looking forward to it. This is the first time that I've been in the coupe though, so that's different.
You just saying that, I was like, what do you mean? Oh, right, there is a non-V8 version. It's like I just don't even think about it. It's like hybrid, no, forget about that. You need the V8.
Yeah, as much as I normally try to say that hybrid is the thing to go to, yeah, in the LC's case, don't do that. Don't
like
deprive yourself.
I try to forget the RC 350, especially the all-wheel drive exists with its 7 inches of front wheel gap for some reason.
Yeah, like it has a nose lift kit that's always on.
All right, well, that wraps things up. So we'll let you get going. And next week, I won't be on. Kyle will have a special co-host, but I'll be back in 2 weeks. So until then, I'll see you later.
So long, everybody.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.